And we are live. Welcome, everybody. Podcast time. Treasury Masterminds, episode 4. I'm very pleased to have Meticulous Tendai Dube on this podcast for today. Meticulous, welcome. Podcast time. Very eager to talk to you and hear your treasury experiences from Africa,
Thanks,
Middle
Patrick.
East, all over the world. Let's start with an introduction. You can best introduce yourself. Go ahead.
Thanks, Patrick, and thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Meticulous Tendai Dube, and my treasury journey started off in Zimbabwe in 2018, and I have held positions of group treasury manager, and the recent regional treasury manager in Dubai, where I moved here last year. Going to be almost a year now in about 2 weeks. And during those positions, I learned the optimization of working capital, cash and liquidity management, debt financing, bank relationship management, just to name a few. And from where I'm coming from, I can say I'm passionate about creating structure where there are financial complexity. We're talking about a high inflation, currency volatility environment. And apart from that, I love nature. That I can enjoy during my spare time because we're in summer and we are talking about 48, 50 degrees. So nature doesn't apply here. Apart from that, I love interacting with fellow traders, fellow bankers, just to have an overview of what's happening within the market, both regionally as well as
Okay, thank you. Um, Maybe the first question, a bit personal, maybe. You call yourself meticulous. Where does this name come from?
Mhm.
Does it has anything to do with treasury? I'm curious.
So no, Patrick, I don't call myself I don't call myself meticulous. It's a name that my dad gave me, and
Okay.
the history behind is he did not have any girl siblings in his family. So when I was born, he just said, "Wow, this is meticulous." But
Okay.
also he was a mathematician, so I think I understand where where he was coming from. How that connects with my journey as a treasurer. First of all, I'm attentive to detail, which is probably annoying to most people, but I do not just take documents at face value. I make sure I scrutinize every document. I'm also analytical. I think it's one of the key attributes that a treasurer should have. I analyze each and every document. One of the responses that I get when I tell them my name, they ask me, "What's your name?" Meticulous. And one of the responses that I always get is, "Wow, you are meticulous indeed." I always make sure that the way I present myself out there, I'm representing the organization. So I have to be meticulous as well in the way I present myself. So yeah.
Okay, okay, nice, nice. Somehow I had the impression this was a self-given name, so excuses to your dad for that one. It's an amazing name.
No, no.
Okay, okay. I looked a bit in your background on your LinkedIn and seeing what you did, um, and it said somewhere you once cut funding costs from 48% to 15. That's quite impressive, amazing. I would love to hear how you did that, how that happened, and the story behind that.
I think that was actually one of my main highlights when I joined Surface Wilma. I'll break it down into three categories of how I managed to cut down on funding costs. First, it was debt restructuring. Secondly, it was renegotiating the pricing, coming up with better rates as well as better terms. And thirdly, I introduced a system of multi-banking within the group. So let's drill down to how I managed to restructure the debt. At the time when I joined the group, they were relying heavily on local currency facilities. And at that time, rates were around 30%. And this was mainly because of the hyperinflation within Zimbabwe, as well as the volatile currency. And what I did is I then sat down with my bankers. We assessed the needs of the business and we managed to come up with USD facilities because most of our obligations were in USD anyway. So it was easier to move from ZWL, the local currency facilities, to USD. And at that time, the USD facilities were ranging from around 8% to 12%, 13, 14% with some banks, but that was quite exceptional. So that was the first initiation that I came up with. And then secondly, I think one area that we as treasurers probably undermine is revisiting the pricing sheets. You set up a facility and you just let it sit. The business continues to grow. You've got more deposits coming into the bank, but your pricing remains the same. So I then discussed with my banks to say, guys, look here, the business is growing, you are getting more deposits. Can you revisit the pricing of our facilities? So that was the second issue. And thirdly, the bank was relying on about, I think, two banks. And because we had several banks within the country that we could set up facilities with, I then introduced multi-banking system. And by doing that, I had the leverage, the bargaining power on my end to say, but guys, you want to charge me this rate for the facility, but another bank is charging me so much. And at the same time, you also want my deposits. So I had the bargaining power on my end to, negotiate better pricing. So yeah, I think those three main components are what assisted me in cutting down on funding costs.
Yeah, yeah. Amazing story. You really showed the added value of a treasurer in a company, yeah? Reducing risk at the same time, also reducing funding costs, and being a positive ROI for the company, saving them
Right.
more money than a treasurer really costs. So that's I love stories like those. Amazing. I also like to hear from you. You've worked in Africa, you've moved to Dubai. Um, are
Yeah.
the treasuries very different there? How about cultural differences? How are you adapting? Is there different viewpoints how they see and treat treasury? Of course, Dubai is a much less volatile currency. It might be much more money involved there than it is in Africa. Yeah, happy to hear what you see.
So I would say that, my transition has been somewhat quite interesting and fun at the same time because I'm coming from an environment where it was trying to navigate liquidity constraints on a day-to-day basis. You get to the office, you call your bank, guys, can we please have FX allocation? And then you come to Dubai, to UAE, there is less currency volatility. You do not have liquidity constraints. So now what do you do when you've got surplus funds? Do you just look at the funds and smile and say, we've got enough funding within the group? And what I've realized is in UAE, we've got a lot of startups. Businesses in UAE are expanding. So what that has tells me as treasurer is to look at from a more strategic point of view, instead of creating is now proactive. How do I invest the money expanding the business? Are they penetrating into new markets? What are the regulatory and compliance issues that are involved with the new markets that they are getting into? And then be able to advise them on a treasury point of view, the facility structures that we need to come up with, debt financing, equity financing, and if you're to be having any surplus funds in the new markets, do you place them on short-term money markets? Do you buy treasury bills? Do you buy bonds? So it's coming from a reactive approach in Zimbabwe to a more proactive and strategic approach in handling treasury issues.
Yeah, interesting. Makes a lot of sense. Thanks. So you've done a lot in treasury. I've seen trade finance, I've seen FX on your profile, liquidity, but also compliance. All not the very sexy parts of treasury. What's that one area you think treasurers underappreciate until it's too late?
You know what? This might sound obvious and straightforward, Patrick, but I believe one area that we overlook as treasurers is cash flow forecasting. Now, cash flow forecasting is not just sitting in your pretty office, building figures, coming up with forecast for the next 2 weeks, 1 month, etc. It goes beyond that. It's all about knowing the business cycle. Get out of your office, get into the plant, interact with the head of production, get to know when they say. So I'll give an example from where I'm coming from, FMCG. When they say the production cycle is like this, we need to buy labels for these products before it's in the market. And you come from production, you then interact with your AP. What are the supplier patterns? You interact with your AR. What are your customer payment terms? And as you have consolidated view of the business cycle, you are then able to sit behind your desk and decision. So when you reach out to banks and say you want to set up trade finance out of maybe letters of credits, and you say, guys, we need this supplier paid within such a period, because if we don't, the plant is going to close. You are informing the banks from a more informed position, because now you know how the business operates. So you're going to just sit behind your desk and you have no idea what happens in production, and the production manager comes back to you and say, Meticulous, we need to pay for closures, and you use that cash flow in the next maybe 2 weeks payments. That will disrupt the business. And before you know it, production closes. When production closes, there is no inflow that is coming into the organization. So yeah, I would say cash flow forecasting based on knowing more about the business cycle from all angles.
Yeah, makes sense. But you picked a difficult part there. Let me look at the next question.
Yeah.
If you were dropped into a struggling treasury team and you had 90 days, only 3 months to show impact, where would you start besides cash flow forecasting?
Uh, that's a difficult one. Now I feel like I'm in an interview. But where I would start, listening to the different internal stakeholders, understanding the business from all the internal stakeholders, and getting to know their pain points and how best we as treasurers can be able to solve their pain points. And then from there, I would look at the cash visibility within the organization, the business cycle, the funding structures that they've been using, as well as the bank relationship management. And then from there, I would also look at treasury policies that are in place and gaps that we can cover up. And I believe once you address all the issues, knowing the business, knowing the pain points, and be a problem solver within the organization and be able to see how visible is your cash, because if you do not know where your cash is, you cannot make any smart decisions. And thirdly, treasury policy implementations, see where there are any gaps and try and cover those gaps.
Yes, makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense. Next one is related to this one.
Yeah.
What's the biggest myth about treasury you love
Mhm.
to debunk once and for all?
Please come again. What's the biggest?
The biggest myth, the biggest what people think is happening in treasury, but it's actually not um, within treasury.
I think the biggest myth that we need to get rid of once and for all, Patrick, is treasury is all about payments. I don't know how best we can educate people to advise them that we go beyond making payments. It's more about strategy. It's more about advising the CFO, the CEO, on how best we can align the organizational strategy goals with the cash positioning of the organization. So I think we need to educate people more on this myth that treasury goes beyond payments. If I can ask you from your end, you obviously deal with a lot of clients. How do you educate them when they give you a job description that you can tell that no, but this is not really what a treasurer is supposed to do? How do you educate different clients?
Yeah, it's a good question. It depends a bit on on a lot of factors. The size of the treasury, obviously, the responsibilities of the treasurer, and the supporting roles around that treasurer. I fully agree with you.
Right,
Treasury should not be doing payments, not at
right,
all. Maybe pushing one button on checking liquidity, but not definitely not be responsible for those payments. We should help with
yeah,
bank connectivity and ERP connectivity and automating payments, but definitely
mhm,
not to be doing them. Um, so my key advice to clients when I see wrong job descriptions or job descriptions that don't make sense is to really focus on what should this treasurer be doing. The key tasks, what you say, and I love what you say, cash visibility, policy, and risk parts. If those key items that the treasurer
right,
needs to do first, you're really taking care of a client that's helpful. And in my opinion, the biggest myth
right,
is shared roles. If I see those, I get quite itchy. For example, um, and with the head off, it works. For example, I see tax and treasury manager roles sometimes, um, which makes sense because they probably have half an FTE for treasury and a half an FTE for tax, and they try to combine that role then into one. Um, but
right,
you will never find one person who's good at tax and good at treasury. He's either good at treasury and knows a bit about tax, or you're a tax manager who knows a
yeah,
bit about treasury. So you'll find somebody knowing a bit of both,
mhm,
and be very strong and focused on one. Um, as a head of treasury and tax, it's definitely possible because you're leading team of experts where you have this expertise. But in a single role, that would never work. You really need
yeah,
experts and focus. Like you say, focus on treasury. One person who's an expert, like you, um, reduce the financing costs, reduce the risk, implement cash visibility, and then you win for this company, you've already won,
Right.
because they made more money than you would have cost as a treasurer. So yes, amazing question. Thanks for that. Let me have a look what more I have on my list for you. Um, yes, you've built strong banking relationships throughout your career. What's your approach when you need to get things done, especially if times are tough, and you really need to deliver? How do you handle it?
So building banking relationships is a two-way relationship, Patrick. We need to build the relationships. They also need to gain our trust as bankers. So it's something that does not happen overnight. It's something that we build on as time progresses. If a banker asks for probably your management accounts, how quickly do you deliver those? If your banker asks for cash visibility, your cash flows, how quickly are you able to give them what they require? So, in as much as we as an organization need services from the bankers, we also need to make sure that when they request for stuff from our end, we are able to deliver so that they are also able to do their job. And in doing that, you create trust, you create strong relationships with your bankers. And the other approach that I've come up with is not only do I have a relationship with our relationship manager, so I get to see who's in the banking system. We talk of head of treasury, head of compliance, head of payments, and when I have any issues that needs to be resolved, I know the exact person that I need to pick up the phone and call. If it's going to be a compliance issue and the central bank is delaying in issuing a go-ahead, I know the person to call the head of compliance and say, guys, what's going on? So for me, it's about building key relationships within the banks, not only your relationship managers, and also not only the heads of those particular departments. We're talking about the operational guys, maybe the ones who push payments. Someone calls me within the organization and says, Meticulous, we made a payment to such and such a supplier, but they haven't received their funds. I don't call the relationship manager. I can directly go to the person who pushes the payments within the bank. So yeah, it's about building trust both ways and also knowing the key contacts within the bank so that when you're hit with a crisis, you know where exactly to go.
Yeah, yeah, makes perfect sense. You need to act fast in treasury, yeah. So you need the right person to help you out, and that's not always easy in global treasury relationships. Um, Maybe especially
Yeah.
in Africa and then in the Middle East. That might definitely be a bigger challenge compared to Europe, but I'm a bit assuming here. Not too much experience there. Yeah, interesting. Um, Coming back to Africa, Middle East, given that you have the knowledge there, and I'm quite curious about that region. What do you see are the biggest opportunities for those regions? Obviously, relating it to treasury.
Uh, Middle East, I would say innovation. We operate in a fast-paced economy, and as a treasurer, you cannot afford to sit back and do things the way you are used to doing them. Things change on a day-to-day basis, so you need to go out there, have knowledge of what's going on in the market. What's the global changes, how do they impact on the treasury space in the Middle East, and how can you adjust accordingly? And that also comes up with thinking outside the box. Like I mentioned earlier, this side we do not have currency volatility, unlike Zimbabwe. So you have to think outside the box. The business is developing. How best can you make use of the funds? How do you reach out to banks within the other regions so that you can come up with better ways to invest your finances in those different regions. Now, coming back to Africa, I would talk of resilience, Um, I think I once mentioned to someone and said, against popular belief that treasury in Africa slash Zimbabwe is too basic, I think Zimbabwe is actually one of the most innovative and resilient treasuries that I've known, because you're forced to come up with ways to make sure that the organization continues running. You don't depend solely on the bank to give you FX. You have to think about third parties who can give you FX just so that the business continues to run. So in summary, it's all about knowing the market that you're operating in and be at an informed position to make the best treasury decisions that will make sure that the organizations continue to grow.
Yeah, amazing. And yes, makes sense. That's the role of a treasurer. For a related question on that one, maybe tell us a war story. Yeah, what's one hard lesson you've learned in treasury? Maybe one that became a defining moment in your career. But a tough story. What happened in treasury, and a bad one, a war story, and how did you solve it?
Uh, so I would say before uh, before I started off my career, I was one person I wasn't really good when it came to handling people. Because I believed that, treasury is all about spreadsheets. You're behind your desk, you're coming up with your cash flows. You do not have much interaction with people. But then a liquidity crunch happens. And now you have to explain to that internal stakeholder, that supply chain head of department, to say, why didn't you pay this supplier? You know, and it came with me having tough conversations and coming out of my comfort zone to be able to deal with different type of people, and that's when your emotional intelligence also comes in to be able to say, okay, I'm going to deal with person A. This is how their character is. So when I approach them, I need to approach them at a certain angle. I'm going to be dealing with this other person, and this is how their character is. So when I'm going to be dealing them, I need to deal with them from a different angle. So yeah, that's one lesson that I've learned in treasury management, that you're going to meet a lot of different stakeholders, both internally and externally, but you need to be able to interact with different people and be able to address them according to their characteristics.
I think that's a very fair
Yeah,
and humble answer, Meticulous. And great advice for everybody who's listening. A treasury in an ivory tower, it doesn't work. A treasury in spreadsheets, no. Go out there, talk to your colleagues around there. And yes, sometimes you have
right.
this tough conversation and say, we don't have the cash. Sorry, I paid late. Or we need to make tough calls. Or hey, AP
Yeah,
team, chase your overdues. We need the money. This is your job. Yes, definitely. I like that answer. Thanks, Meticulous. Um, let's go into a bit more personal question. Um, is there do you have a hobby or interest, maybe personal, um, maybe something that may help you be better at treasury or at work? Just curious.
okay. Since you're curious, I'll spill my secret. I love journaling. Usually early morning and just before I go to bed, because when I'm journaling, I'm reflecting. I'm in a calm state. I reflect on what I would have done or what I plan on doing, what I can do better in the future, what I did wrong before, and I believe that approach has also helped me in treasury management, because in treasury you face situations where you are really under pressure, but you need to stay calm in spite of that pressure. So journaling and being able to think about my strategies, about what I need to do, and reflect on what I've done before has helped me to stay calm under so much pressure. And trust me, Patrick, you can see me in the office and be so much under pressure. But you walk into the office and we can start laughing, we can start have a conversation, discuss about anything. But there's so much pressure building behind. So I would say journaling really helps me on a personal note.
Okay. Interesting. Interesting.
Yeah.
Maybe I should start journaling as well. I don't know.
How do you manage to stay sane when pressure is building your end? How do you stay sane?
Yeah. I think I don't. I don't. I just go crazy and try to solve it. And no, journaling wouldn't be for me because I'm not patient enough to,
Yeah,
to write it down. Um, I think my approach would be to stay calm and focus on, hey, what's the real priority here now? We have a deadline. This is our goal. How can we reach this goal? Um, and that might mean saying no to other things, no to other tasks, and saying, okay, this is not the priority now. Let that one go. Um, I sometimes have that with clients as well. I used to have long full-time assignments. Now I have
okay.
several part-time assignments. So sometimes I have stacked responsibilities, and sometimes that comes together in a day where I have four, five, six deadlines with different clients at the same time. Um, Usually I know them up front, so I can plan for them. That helps. Sometimes they happen ad hoc, and then it's like, okay, now I have to make a decision, what has the most priority, and try to solve that, and then move to the next one. Um, but usually my way of doing it is planning ahead, looking on a Monday, what's my week ahead, what are my priorities, what do I need to do. And there are always a bit of surprises coming on, that makes Treasury fun, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah,
Sometimes
yeah,
stressful, yes, that's part of it. But that's why I love Treasury. All these surprises. Hey,
yeah,
Patrick, this account wasn't funded. We can't pay salaries. I'm like, oh my god, let's make this work. Let's do it. And then if it works out and everything is fine, we can look back like, okay, Treasury solved it. We did it. We're the lifesavers. And we lost Meticulous. Let's wait a minute if she comes back. We
Hi,
lost you
I'm
for a
back.
second there. Yes, I lost you for a second. Can
Yeah.
you hear me? Yes, very good, very good. Good. I'm at my final question anyway, Meticulous. Um, let's imagine you had unlimited
Yes, I
budget.
can hear you.
Very good. Um, Final question, Meticulous. Let's imagine you have unlimited budget, full management buy-in. What treasury transformation project would you launch today, tomorrow, immediately?
Sorry, please come again. I lost you there.
Let's imagine you have unlimited budget, so money is not the
Hi,
issue.
Patrick. Sorry,
Uh,
I lost you there.
just let's imagine
Hmm.
you have unlimited money, so budget is not the issue. Management also, they say, go ahead, Meticulous, do whatever you want. We agree with what you do. Um, what treasury transformation project would you be doing?
Always. Yeah. So I've always been passionate about implementing treasury management systems. Because where I'm coming from, I think well, all the organizations that. So for me, that's actually on my wish list to be able to implement a treasury management system, and whilst doing that also as well as cash visibility. So yeah, to me, if I've got unlimited budget, if the organization that I'm working for does not have any TMS in place, I would definitely implement one. But I'll also make sure that I upskill my team members, because I believe that as treasurers, we always need to stay ahead when it comes to, upskilling, which professional
Yep. No, yeah, makes sense. Now let's run to management and let's get that money,
yeah.
so we can do these projects. Thanks a lot, Meticulous, for your openness, for sharing your answers and sharing your story from Africa to Dubai. It was good. It was amazing to have you on this podcast. Thanks for your time and your openness and answers. Um, and to the audience, I also hope you enjoyed the story, either live or hearing it on our Spotify. So thanks, Meticulous. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks,
Okay.
Patrick.